It was meant to provide greater protection for women and girls, but now the Scottish Government has scrapped plans for a new law to criminalise misogyny. Ministers say there isn't enough time to draft the law following the Supreme Court's ruling on the definition of a woman. The Government also confirmed it won't be bringing forward legislation to end conversion therapy. Here's our political correspondent, Phil Sim.
In January, women in Edinburgh joined others across the UK in marching against misogyny. It's long been an issue the government has promised to tackle. After an expert group recommended standalone protections in law, a previous First Minister started the process of drawing up a bill to criminalise misogynistic harassment.
It recognises that misogyny is endemic and that it blights the lives of women every single day.
That was put on hold while the Supreme Court mulled over the definition of a woman in law. The ruling has now arrived, but ministers say there isn't time to pass a complex bill before next year's election.
What we've got to recognise is the complexity of the issues that we're wrestling with in the misogyny bill, but we can take action to tackle misogyny through amendments to the hate crime bill, and that's the route the government has opted to pursue to make sure that we can take action on misogyny and do that at the earliest possible opportunity, and that will be steps the government will take in the duration of this parliamentary term.
That plan of using existing hate crime laws to tackle this goes against the original recommendations of Baroness Helena Kennedy's report. But she feels this reflects the way that society is moving.
It hasn't come as an enormous surprise to me. And the reason why is because we're seeing a sort of a retreat from some of these areas that are being characterised as woke. Or political correctness. And I think that the Scottish Government just thinks this is going to be too much of a headache because we're going to have a whole lot of people accusing us of that.
In fairness, it does take time to get robust, legally watertight bills through the Parliament, and the government is being very careful about that Supreme Court ruling. But it was an unambiguous and clear ruling, and ultimately you can get a bill through Parliament in a matter of days if there's the political will to do so. The opposition say there have been years to work on this and another bill on ending conversion therapy, which is also in the long grass.
We know that these issues matter to people. We know that there's been overwhelming evidence of the need for this legislation. And we also know that there's parliamentary support for it. So to hear at this stage that the Scottish Government won't be presenting Parliament with this legislation to scrutinise is really, really disappointing.
Today was all about getting the bad news out of the way before John Swinney presents his legislative plans next week. On Tuesday, we'll find out what the government is going to prioritise in the coming year.
And Phil's in Holyrood tonight. Phil, there's been a lot of reaction to this. Just why is it so significant?
Well, I think the issue for the government is that it's spent years battling a women's group in the courts about the very definition of a woman, and now they're kicking these bespoke legal protections for women into the long grass. Ironically, for Women Scotland, the group on the other side of those court cases is actually in favour of John Swinney's solution. They wanted sex to be included in the hate crime bill in the first place. But I think the government know that today's announcement is not going to win them many friends overall. That's why it was announced, in a written parliamentary answer on a Friday morning while people are focused on the local election results down south. But ultimately the next parliamentary term is the whole point here. John Swinney wants to focus next week on the big ideas he can show to voters as him delivering on their priorities ahead of the next election. I think today was simply about getting some of the more difficult announcements out of the way well in advance of that.
OK, Phil, many thanks indeed.